I'm Brian Gaberman. I am a human on planet Earth.
So how long has it been now that you've been retired, so to speak, from photography?
So I stopped working for Element in 2018, and I tried to kind of keep it going in skateboarding, but there was not like a place, like a home for me anymore in it, you know? Like nobody was hiring. So that was pretty much the end of it. I did do some spot stuff here and there, like a few jobs for Adidas and things like that over the years following, but like 2018 was kind of like it was like a cold stop. It was like cold turkey. It was weird.
And then you just set the cameras down and that was it?
Yeah, it was weird, man. It was like it's hard to like say it was conscious or anything. It was just kind of like, okay, like my whole life was this routine of like, you know, getting told, all right, here we're going on this trip, we're gonna go shoot here, we're doing this. Like I was like, okay, and then one day like that just stopped, and yeah, I was just like kind of shocked, like shell shocked for a while, I think, you know, and so I just kind of had to figure out like, well, who am I if I'm not a photographer? You know, because so it was like a year of just being like really depressed, trying to figure out like, because I wanted to shoot, but I didn't necessarily want to shoot skateboarding anymore. I felt like I had done all I could do there. Like I was definitely feeling like I was going downhill with it toward the end. Like I wasn't being any more creative. I wasn't necessarily being any less, but it was just kind of this flatline feeling, and I don't like that feeling. Like I didn't feel like I was learning anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of like went radio silent, like just didn't pick up a camera for a while, like tried to figure out like, well, what am I if I'm not a photographer? Because that's what I always identified as. You know, that was my whole, you know,
What about being
idea
a
of
skateboarder
myself.
though?
Well, what do you mean?
You've been a skateboarder for a long time. Do you still skateboard at all?
Yes, but nowhere near as much, obviously. I mean, I'm almost 50 now, but yeah, it's funny. I would like, I don't know. I probably skated more since I stopped being a photographer. Like, and like John Miner would get me out skating and stuff like that. I probably skated more since then than I did for the last 10 years of my like photo career in skateboarding. You know, I always had a really hard time like turning it on and off. Like if I was working, if I was in photo mode, I like couldn't just stop and be like, oh, I'm gonna like skate for a bit now. Like my head was just always in that, you know. So it's kind of a shame because like I got to be in like really amazing places, and I could have and should have been skateboarding when I didn't have to be shooting, but I was just always in that mindset of like photographer today, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when it's your income.
Yeah, well, it was just, I took it very seriously, you know, for whatever reason. Like I really cared a lot about doing as good a job as I could, right? And so it was a very passion driven thing for me. And so I wasn't able to just sort of waffle, you know, like I was around other photographers that could totally just put the camera down and go skate for a half hour while this guy was like warming up or trying to figure out what he was going to do. I couldn't do that. I was just like sort of studying the spot. Like, I don't know, I kind of run like on a nervous system level, like really high. And so I was always kind of like on alert for like making sure if somebody was ready to do a trick, I knew where I was going to shoot from. I knew how I was going to light it. Like all those things, like I had to have worked out in advance or I would panic. Like if I wasn't prepared, it felt like a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it was just so hard to bounce back and forth between the two. You know? Yeah, I saw a lot of people that could just get away with that, and they didn't. They held it very lightly, you know, very loosely. Like I held everything really tightly.
Have you ever felt like your work wasn't good enough?
Always.
Always, yeah.
Always, yeah. So many times, like in the early part of my career, where I would just kind of like come up with article ideas and just produce them myself and then like hand them over to the magazine and hope they'd publish them, you know. I'd work on something for like months, and when I was done, I remember just like one time just laying on the floor in my darkroom like wanting to just cry, like this whole thing was a failure. Like I'm done and this whole thing was a failure. Like these suck, right? And it was a good article. Like it came out fine. They accepted it, they printed it, they liked it. I got a lot of like good feedback from it, but I always just felt like I could have done better. I should have done better. Like, that always kind of drove me, which is unhealthy.
Can you tell us about how you got started in photography?
Yeah, so growing up, I grew up in Connecticut, and my best friend at the time, and to this day, one of my closest best friends in the world, Matt O'Brien, his father was a photojournalist, and he worked for the local paper. So he was always like taking pictures of us, goofing off and skating and stuff like that. And he had a darkroom in the basement, and he'd come upstairs with like 8x10 black and white prints, you know, like, check you guys out, like, being dorks, or, you know, look at Matt doing a hand plant, you know, like in the grass, like just funny stuff like that. So I was around it from that time, and I always just thought it was really awesome and really magical and really mysterious, you know. And then I didn't really think about it. I moved to California, and I started going to the JC, and I was just gonna be a journalist. Like, I really liked writing, and so I got out of high school, and my teachers were like, well, if you like writing, you could be a journalist. There's a job where you write, you know. I was like, okay, I'll do that, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to skateboard, you know. So I moved to California and started working for the school paper at the JC, and I think they needed somebody to go take pictures of like a girls' basketball game or something like that, you know. And so they lent me a camera, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I did it. And then somebody taught me how to develop the film in the lab. And and then I kind of realized like I enjoyed that, and I started talking about it a lot. I lived with my aunt at the time, and I started talking about photography more and more, and she was like, I'm so sick of hearing you talk about this. Just get a freaking camera, you know? So she found a good deal on a camera, like on Craigslist or whatever, you know, and bought it for me and made me pay her back for it. So she really just sort of nudged me into it, because I was just talking. I wasn't going to probably ever do it, you know? And then, yeah, once I got that camera, I was just like hooked. I was just obsessed, you know? And of course, like, the first thing you photograph is what's closest to you, and that was all my friends and riding skateboards. So it was just very organic flow, you know. There were never any like big decisions about it or anything, or preconceived ideas. It just happened. And then what happened with skateboarding was I just slowly realized I was enjoying photographing more than I was enjoying skateboarding. So that's my passion, just sort of took that road, you know. Yeah.
What was the camera?
It was a Pentax ME Super with a 28 and a 50.
Nice.
And I had that thing, I think I finally gave it away, like, but I had that thing for like 25, 30 years. Yeah. And it was awesome. I mean, it was so small, and it was basically like an FM2, like a glorified FM2 that had like aperture priority, I think, in it, you know. But it was great. Yeah. Nice. Super compact, and took that thing on all my first like skate trips and stuff, to like as like a lifestyle incidentals camera, you know.
Who are some of your favorite photographers?
When I was first introduced to like fine art photography, it was in the JC library, and I was in between classes, and I was bored, and I didn't know that it existed, that it was like a thing. And then I was just like going through the art books, and I found there was a photography section, and frickin' like one of the first books I picked up was Sally Mann, and she's still my favorite photographer, like to this day. So she was like a huge, you know, game changer for me. She opened my eyes to so much. I would say, if like in one hand, it would be Sally Mann, Harry Callahan, Ralph Eugene Meatyard, Edward Weston, Wynn Bullock. Those people. Like it was all black and white, and it was all people that really liked black in their pictures, and kind of a lot of darkness or a lot of contrast. Yeah, that just like totally woke me up to a whole new world when I found that book, because I just had no idea you could even look at the world that way, much less capture it that way.
What was your first paid gig as a photographer?
Well, probably the first photo I ever got published was in Slap, and it was Hari Wheeler, who's the mailman around here now. I think I got $80 for it. I was so excited.
And was that your foot in the door at Slap magazine, or did
Yes.
it take a while?
Well, it took a while. I mean, it didn't take that long, actually. I think I was really lucky. Like, I sent in, you know, a whole like sheet of different slides I had shot, and they ended up printing one, probably not on the first round of me sending them stuff. Like Lance was super discerning about what he would put in the magazine. But eventually that got an image got accepted. They printed that, and then it was like immediately I thought, oh, I can do this. I should quit my job and just be a photographer full time. I had no idea like how hard that was, and it took probably 6 months before I got any more money from another photo after that, because back in those days, like you'd send in your slides to the magazine and you'd wait a few weeks, and either they would just come back in the mail, or they might keep one and everything else would come back in the mail, and then they would be like, yeah, we're going to publish this, and then like you might not see it in print for 4 more months, and then you might not get paid for another 2 months after that, because Thrasher always had this like really big lag between when things would print and when they would pay out the photographers. So I remember that very clearly, because it was like I had to borrow money from my grandpa to pay the rent, and because I was like, I thought I could do it because it's like, oh, I got published, like they'll probably keep publishing me. But it wasn't that simple. But it only took like a year before Lance offered me a job, which was amazing, and that was like 96, I think. I just kept sending him stuff, and I think I went on a trip with my friends and we made an article and I sent it to him and he published it. That was my first real article, and I think after that he offered me the job, and it was like $1,000 a month to be a retainer photographer. But I also had to go into the office and do a bunch of stuff, like load bulk film for all the other photographers and like send people's film back and negatives. Like I had to do so many things and be a photographer, but it was totally awesome. I mean, I learned so much. Those were my formative years, I guess. Yeah.
That's like the dream. I mean, those jobs don't really exist anymore.
I know.
The last photos I've had published in Thrasher, like they didn't tell me about it or anything. I'd hear from a friend like, yo, we made Thrasher. I'm like, how do I get a copy?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Not much has changed. Yeah. No, those jobs really are few and far between now. Yeah. I think I just, when I exited skateboard photography, like that was right when all that was really coming clear to everybody. Like, these jobs aren't really there anymore. Because I honestly thought like I had built up enough of a career and reputation that it would be not that hard to find another job in skateboarding, but it was. They just weren't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the ones that were, those people were not budging,
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
What excites you most in skate photography? That might be a hard question now.
Well, no, nothing now, honestly. I think that's part of the reason why I sort of fell out of love with it, was I wasn't seeing it. I just wanted to see people like totally experiment, I loved that. Like Thomas Campbell and Spike Jones are the two people that like made me see skateboard photography the way I see it, and will always want to see it, and will always hope to see it, because they weren't afraid to try anything. There's a lot of pressure when you're a skateboard photographer. Like if you screw up, like if that guy is only going to do it once and it's dangerous and he's trusting you, that's a lot of pressure for you to get it right. And so I understand why people don't want to take those risks, but that's what excites me, is like not knowing exactly what's going to happen, having a plan, having a hope and a dream and a vision, but not really knowing what's going to happen. Like Thomas would just shoot photos and leave the shutter open for 30 seconds at night. Like he'd shoot it with the flash, and then he would just make all kinds of crazy shapes and swirls from lights and the ambient light, and like he didn't know what was going to happen. And I mean, I know it ruined a million photos, but like the ones that worked, I don't think anything else like shines a candle to that now, like still. That really excites me. And also I would say like people with really clear vision and focus, like Daniel Harold Sturt, like I think he's definitely the epitome of that. It's just like he knew exactly what he wanted, and it was like this very sharp, like laser sharp focus, you know, and I love that. Yeah, so I always sort of aim to find a balance of those two things, which are very kind of contradictory, but like I think that they open the door to like some really exciting ideas, you know? It's like total control and no control, right? And like, is there a way to put those together and get something really unique, you know? Yeah. So that was always like a fun challenge, but scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if like Heath or Andrew Reynolds or somebody's going to do something one time that's like really dangerous, like you can't, you have to know your audience. You have to know when you can get away with trying stuff like that. So I always had a lot more fun shooting with people that didn't take it that seriously, because I knew I could do the same thing, you know? Like I could take a lot of risks, and there wasn't much on the line. But yeah, that as you mature in your career and you start working with better and better people, and there are higher stakes, so it gets harder to do that. Yeah, that just became like really obvious to me, probably the last 10 years of my career, that I wasn't photographing as freely as I wanted to. Yeah, just watching a gopher poke its head out of the ground right now.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, it's distracting.
It's interesting that you bring up the long exposure and then flashing the flash in the middle of it. It brings me to my next question of sequence versus stills.
Still, yeah. I think like the last 10 years of my career, I pretty much refused to shoot sequences. People would try to get me to, and I just felt like with how ubiquitous video was, it's like, what's the point? Like, the video's got that covered. Like, can I just try to like capture one moment? That's what photography really is, you know? Yeah, in my early years, I was firing them off all the time, you know? But videos weren't all over the place back then. You know, there wasn't YouTube and stuff like that. So it made a little more sense. There were tricks that warranted it. You needed to see everything, right? But yeah, toward the later part of my career, I was just like, please don't ask me to shoot a sequence. Like, everybody that worked with me knew. Like, don't even ask him to. He's not gonna want to do it.
What about shooting like a multi-strobe sequence where it's a singular photo?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
I don't have a problem with that. I think Spike did some of the coolest ones of those, and I always thought that was awesome. It's just really hard to get it right.
It's a still, right?
Yeah, it's a still. No, I think it's great. I don't have any problem with that. I don't know. I don't know. I've always just been very into like the image, the one image, the moment, like whatever that means, to put it into one frame, you know. I've always felt like that was photography, you know. Sequences didn't feel like photography. They felt like I was a filmer, like, you know.
Yeah.
And there's people that are much better at that than me, so why should I do that? Early digital times when I would shoot sequences, I just like hold down the forward arrow and watch it play the sequence, and it's like, I'm just watching a video right here. This is silly. Like, you know, the only thing nice about it is there's better like shallow depth of field and things like that I can put into it, but like otherwise, like, it's not very special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that most of your work involved ambient light, or did you shoot with flashes?
No, I used a lot of flash, although I preferred ambient light always. Still do. If I have to go shoot, I will always, yeah. I was never a huge fan of lighting. I enjoyed it at night, like kind of like what we talked about with Thomas's photos. It's like to be able to like capture movement and freeze the action is a really unique thing in photography. I love that, but I don't like lighting. I never felt like I was great at it. I definitely like tried really hard over my career to get better and better at it, and I know I did, but nothing ever touched like just good natural light. Like, I really tried to avoid it, you know? And it's like, it wasn't out of laziness. It was just that I felt like what I saw, I could do better with the natural light, and then with darkroom manipulation after the fact. I felt like that was much easier to get to my vision than trying to use lighting. Lighting was just a giant hassle anyway. Like, things never work, and, you know, that flash didn't go off this time, and like that flash is like in the skater's way, and it drove me nuts. Yeah. I probably put more energy into like trying to get good at using lighting than in any other portion of photography. I never really felt like I got there, you know.
Would you ever go back to a spot because you knew at 10 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
it was better than?
If I had the opportunity to, totally. Like, we'd be at a spot and I would tell the guy, like, hey, like, this will look awesome if we come back at 5 or, you know, in the morning. Like, are you down for that? Sometimes they were, sometimes you just have to do it. You know, if you're on a trip in another country, you're just shooting where you are, when you are, that's it, you know. You don't have that kind of luxury. Try to imagine going on a 2-week trip back when you shot film and not having any idea if your flashes were going off when you were shooting the photos, like until you got home. And I mean, every time I would get back from a trip back when we were shooting film, it didn't matter if I got in at midnight because the lab in San Francisco was open 24 hours a day. I would just go straight there and drop my film and be there first thing in the morning because I had to know, like, just, are there going to be images on this film, you know? Again, there's so much riding on it, like, yeah.
yeah, that's a scary feeling.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't miss that pressure at all.
Yeah. What's the craziest thing that happened traveling the world documenting skating? Like, what's one of the crazier stories?
I think one of the most memorable experiences that was, for me, pretty crazy, was when I went to Brazil with Chris Sen and Manzuri, and he was dating a girl at the time who lived in a favela, you know, like a hillside shanty town, basically. And at the time, I don't know if it's still like this, but like you couldn't just go into them. They were armed, guarded by like teenagers with machine guns, like all over the place. They were just hanging out with their guns because it was all kind of paid for by drug dealers. They kind of supported the community and stuff. So it was kind of like a going through a maze to buy drugs kind of thing, but also people lived here, you know, and we were allowed to go in there because she lived in there. And I just remember being really scared, really freaked out because we're getting walked up this hillside through all these just shacks and, you know, total like houses made out of whatever was around, and stolen electricity from everywhere and all this stuff. And I had my cameras. I was so excited to, like, oh my gosh, you know, and Chris just kept telling me, like, don't point your camera, like, keep your camera by your side, don't point it anywhere, like, these dudes don't mess around, they don't want to be photographed, they don't know you, you know. So that, I just remember, like, but it also ended up being one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Like, the woman that his girlfriend lived with was super sweet, and like they took us in and made us like one of the best cups of coffee I ever had in my life. And we ended up getting to skate in the favela. There was like one spot where like kids would play, like a basketball court, and like they let us take photos in there and stuff, as long as like my camera was only pointed at that. Like, they were really paranoid about me pointing my camera anywhere else. So I just remember being really terrified, really exhilarated, really glad we got out of there alive, and it was kind of a once in a lifetime experience. Yeah.
I bet. Yeah,
it was
Brazil's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. The poverty was crazy, but it was a beautiful place. I'd say I'd put that one up there, and then probably going to the Arctic to take skate photos, which didn't make any sense at all, would be another really memorable, crazy one. And encountering polar bears and having to travel with a shotgun and like all kinds of craziness there. That's probably the craziest thing. Yeah.
I lived in Brazil, so I've
Oh,
been to
okay.
Rio de Janeiro and checked
Yeah,
out the favelas.
yeah, Rio's
and-
pretty crazy.
Yeah. Did you ever make it your way down to Sao Paulo or anywhere like that? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. You really have to be in those major cities to get any skatable concrete, because everything
Yeah.
else was cobblestone roads,
Yeah,
and
it's
even
terrible.
in Sao Paulo.
Yeah, because
it
we
wasn't,
drove
you know.
from Sao Paulo to Rio, and like we went through some crazy places. Like, we drove through a little town, and there was just a car on fire on the side of the road, and nobody around. I was like, this is like a movie,
Yeah.
you know? And yeah, Chris San was just like, I think I know where we're going. Like, yeah, we just gotta, let's go this way. Like, you know, it's like, I can't believe my life is in your hands right now. But again, like, one of the most memorable trips for sure. Like, yeah, so beautiful. People were awesome. Yeah, food. I mean, when we were there, I remember we were shooting at a spot in Sao Paulo, and Chris was like, he just comes up to me and he just like stops skating, comes right up to me, and he's like, hey, we gotta go. He's like, pack up your shit. right now. He's like, I watched this dude come back and forth twice, checking us out. Like, we're not going to survive a third pass. Like, this dude's going to rob us, you know? Yeah, he was always like, because he had been there a bunch with his girlfriend and spent a lot of time there, and he was always really like warning us, like, this place is sketchy, dude. People, they don't have anything. They got nothing to lose, you know?
Yeah.
Like, really watch your ass. Yeah. I mean, the favela was nuts, you know? But they were really happy people. They were happy and sweet and giving, and they didn't have anything.
What's the most frustrating aspect of skate photography to yourself?
Really wanting to do your best and really wanting to explore and be creative and knowing that you can't fuck up. I just think that was, yeah, that was always a weight.
Yeah. I'm always curious other photographers' takes on that, because for myself, it tends to be guys that just don't take it serious.
Yeah.
They've got that
yeah.
skate and destroy mentality, and they don't really
Yeah.
care if you get the photo or not. It's like,
Yeah, which is like very admirable, right?
Yeah.
Like, I totally love that about those guys. And as the photographer, it was the most frustrating thing in the world. I remember I had that the first time I went on like a real trip, like that I was sent on by the magazine. I got sent to Europe with the S team, and Ron Krager was like hot shit back then, and we were skating. It was like a demo or something, and you know, I had my camera out and I was like pointing it around, but they were skating everywhere, and he did something really awesome. And I went up to him, I was like, yo, like, can we shoot that? Like, because we were trying to shoot an article, you know, it's like, I got to get something. I haven't gotten anything of him. It's like, hey, do you mind doing that again so we can shoot that? And he's like, no, I just did it. I'm not going to do it again. You should have got it. It's like, well, I didn't know you were going to do it, you know. He didn't end up getting a photo in the article.
oh my gosh.
And I was pretty much over him after that. I was just like, okay, well, I respect that, and that really sucks for me. Like, I'm a kid trying to like build a career here, trying to prove myself, and like, here I am, I have an opportunity with like one of the like best skaters in the world right now, and like, you're just gonna do that? Like, yeah. Frustrating. There's a lot of guys that are like that have that attitude, but will work with you. They understand, like, there's an importance there to like keep their career going too. They know, even though they don't like shooting photos or whatever, they just want to be free, and you know, like, that's awesome. That's what skateboarding is. But yeah, like, when we're doing it on a professional level, we have to play this game a little bit so everybody can keep going, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely encountered some people like that, and that's rough, but a lot of them, I think, were willing to, they knew the deal,
Yeah.
whether they liked it or not. Yeah.
I always imagine that all of them would want to have a print so that in 40 years you can be like, I went there and I did that.
Yeah, you would think so. I don't think skateboarders in general are like the most forward-thinking people. They very much live in the moment, you know, which is super important. You have to have that focus to be able to do what they do. But yeah, it's like, I count on one hand the amount of people that actually like asked for a print of anything that I shot, you know, like skaters, like thinking they might want it when they're an old man, you know, like, it's pretty rare. Yeah.
Now it's a vertically filmed Instagram clip.
Yeah, it's just a different animal now.
Yeah,
you know, I
it's
think
way different.
I was very lucky to exit gracefully when I did.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, like, yeah, it's not what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What inspired your work on the road to Wolfboro?
Well, I mean, I was working with an art director at the time who we were pretty close, and he was just super into supporting me and what I like wanted to do creatively. And since there's always looking for new ideas, new backdrops for a campaign or for whatever to tie into the brand, he just like offered it to me as an option. Like, do you want to do something that's more of like a personal project, you know? And like, he knew I was from the East Coast, and that's where Wolfboro was. Like, it was just this place that the founder of Element, you know, had like a family cabin. I don't know, he made a story up about it. I don't know how much of it is even true, but yeah, my art director Brecht, he was just like, hey, do you want to do something like we could make a little piece about you just going and exploring and like where you grew up and, you know, whatever. And yeah, that was like awesome. Super lucky to get to do that. Like, And I was in a place where I was starting to burn out, and I really wanted a new creative project, and yeah, I just jumped on it. I mean, I kind of always just said yes whenever anybody offered me an opportunity, you know, even if I was just scared of it or didn't know that I could do it. I just felt like you're not going to get anywhere if you say no, so just say yes. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why the choice of dry plate?
I don't remember anymore if that was his suggestion or if it was my idea. Like, he might have just been like, you can do whatever you want. And I think at the time I was really into doing them. And so it just was like a natural thing. Like, yeah, like, I wonder if I could travel with this whole deal. Because I was just doing it wherever I lived. And I could go out for the day and have like 5 film holders loaded. And I could shoot 5 shots, you know? And it was like, okay, could I go on like a 2-week trip and like actually prepare enough in advance, and will this process travel for me? Like, it was a lot to put together. I had to build all these light-proof boxes, and I had to ship it all and code them all here in my darkroom, and then shipped it all over there. Then I had to figure out how I could like swap out plates when I was staying at friends' houses on couches, and how I was going to do all that, and how I was going to develop them to see if it was even working. Like, so I was like turning hotel bathrooms into dark rooms and developing the negatives like in the sink and stuff like that. Like, I brought like a red light bulb. I basically brought like a mini darkroom with me in a Pelican case, shipped that over to the East Coast and traveled with it. And so many of the negatives got fogged from, I don't know if it was from shipping, from heat, from X-ray, I don't know what, but yeah, it was a miracle that I was able to pull enough usable images from it in the end, because a lot of stuff that I was like really excited about was almost impossible to get a print from the negatives. Like, you'd look at the negative and it didn't even look like there was an image. It was in there, but it was so fogged over. And that was another situation where like there wasn't really, I couldn't screw up. There had to be a result. Like, the whole thing was built around me, and there was a guy filming me, and there was, you know, there was a whole campaign behind it. So it wasn't like I could come back and not have any images for them to promote. So it was like, that was tough. Like, just squeezing out of it what I could. Yeah. But super
pressure.
fun doing it. Yeah.
Lots
yeah,
of
a lot of pressure on a very, I don't know how you'd say this, like, trouble-prone process, you know? Like, I got really lucky sometimes with dry plate, and I got a lot of really, really unusable results. Yeah.
There's something about the digital I just don't enjoy.
Me neither. I definitely think that was when I started falling out of love with photography. Was, you know, I was pretty much commercially forced to do it, you know. I really tried to hold out, and like, I think the first shoot I ever did for Element, I did it on film, and it was just, they were just like, we can't wait this long for the results. Like if we're gonna hire you, like, we have to be able to turn this around quicker. There's like all these people waiting to lay out the catalog and the ads and all this stuff, and we can't wait for you to like send us contact sheets, then we make selects, then you go in the darkroom and print those selects. We just can't do it, you know? So I just had to. And yeah, that was the beginning of the end, really. Like, that was probably 2007. And yeah, I made it another like 11 years. But it was hard. The whole way through was hard. Just learning how to reproduce what I knew how to do in the darkroom in a computer took a few years, you know? And when I look at the earlier stuff, it's like, it's really bad. I can't believe that that got used. Like, and I got good at it toward the end. Like, I was actually proud of what I was able to achieve in the computer, and people couldn't tell if it was a photo print or not, you know? So I was proud of that, but there was something missing anyway, always.
Did they buy you a digital camera?
I think they did. Yeah.
So you didn't already have one at that time?
No. Like, I really didn't. I mean, I was such a traditionalist. Like, I always was and always wanted to be. And yeah, just a career and trying to make a living. I didn't have a choice. I didn't feel like I had a choice, you know? Yeah.
What do you feel about film and digital these days? So, do you feel like digital can match it in 2025?
I think in the right person's hands, yeah. Those are few and far between still, I think, you know. Whatever the end result is what really matters. I'm not so concerned anymore about the process, you know. I was stuck to that for a really long time, and I think it just hurt me. So I don't really care how you get there. I just care that it's good, you know. And yeah, now we just have to sift through a lot more crap to get to something good, you know,
Absolutely.
because it's so accessible.
Yeah, it's very accessible, and I'm amazed by how many guys are shooting skating and don't really have any understanding of the cameras or anything
Yeah,
like
like
that.
they really don't know photography. Yeah. Not all of them, obviously. There's a bunch of them that are amazing photographers, but most of them are guys that grew up shooting film, you know? Yeah.
Jake Darwin is one that comes to mind of like, I really like his work.
Jake's
I feel like
amazing.
he does amazing work.
I think he's the best. He's been the best guy going for a long time. Like I think actually it's funny, like when I first started seeing his stuff, I kind of knew like, I'm done. Like this dude's killing it. And it clearly comes really naturally to him, you know? I loved every picture of his that came out. And his lighting was everything I always wanted my lighting to be able to be and could never get it there. And yeah, I mean, I admired the heck out of him. He actually really inspired me to get better at lighting. Like, yeah, he's absolutely the best right now, for sure.
What flashes did you shoot with when you were shooting flash? Like in
Like, well, for a long time I used Lumidynes, like 200 watt, whatever they were, like the speed pack or something, like action pack, yeah. I used those for a long time, and they were just bulky and kind of a pain in the ass and finicky, and then I switched over to, like, Adorama makes those, what are they called, flashpoint ones, and they're great. Their monolights are just killer. They're portable, had a reflector, they're powerful, you could high speed sync. Those are awesome. Yeah. I think it was some photographer in skateboarding that turned me onto those. He was like, oh, I use these, they're so great, man.
Yeah, there's a lot. Most of the guys have switched to the. There's two brands. Godox
Yeah.
is the original manufacturer.
They're both the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Godox and a Flashpoint, and they work with the same triggers.
Yeah. I think it was Acosta. It was Anthony Acosta. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I remember like talking to him, and he kind of guided me through it. He's like, yeah, I think he might have had the Godox ones. He's like, but the Flashpoint, they're exactly the same. Whatever, and he helped me with all that stuff. Like, yeah, because that was quite the game changer. But again, like lighting just always gave me a headache. Like it was always a pain in the ass. Skateboarding is really unique like that, in that like you've got a really fast moving subject really close to the camera, and like you have to freeze it. Like you need it crispy. And like I remember in the beginning, like not knowing about duration, using like those Sunpack potato smasher flashes, right? And just cranking it all the way up, and like I know this photo's sharp, but it's not sharp. You know, like it's blurry. Like why is it's not sharp? And I think probably Lance Dawes was like, dude, you can't go over quarter power flash duration. I was like, flash what? Yeah, and then I spent forever like wrapping my head around that whole concept. Yeah.
Yeah, with the T1 times and the T5. And
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nightmare.
it's complicated.
Nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah, I had that conversation the other day too, where somebody was like, my photo's not sharp, I'm at full power, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Same thing, yeah. I think a lot of people end up having that epiphany at some point.
Well, and then also like with skateboarding, learning that like, oh, like if he's right here in a fisheye, that's never gonna fly. But if he's way over there, you can get away with that. Like you could like if, you know, back in the day when we were shooting film and you were really limited to shutter speed based off of your like ISO or whatever, like I would know like, oh, if I'm shooting somebody far away, I could get away with a 500th of a second. It'll look sharp because he's not close, because the perceived motion is different the closer they get to you. It actually, you know, it travels faster across the film plane right? So it's like, because I remember even having times where I would shoot at like a 2000th with a dude flying like really close past a fisheye, and it still wouldn't be sharp because it's just that perceived motion or whatever. Like, yeah, visually it just doesn't translate. Like you'd have to be up at like a 4000th or something to be really crisp, you know?
Yeah.
Or like if he's going across the frame versus coming towards you. Like if he's coming towards you, you could shoot slower, right? It's just all those things. It's like, I don't know that many other types of photographers have to think about that stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and it's funny seeing photographers who aren't skate photographers posting up shots or publishing shots even, where it's like the butt side of the skater, and it's not like, it's not taken from a skater's perspective.
Totally. Like, yeah, it's like on one hand you've got all that technical knowledge you need to bring to the table that's unique to skateboarding, but then you have to have all of that skateboarding knowledge of style and trick and angle. I mean, yeah, I really do think like it's one of the hardest types of photography in the world.
Yeah.
You know, I think surfing photography is crazy, you know. Those guys are unbelievable, and that's like a whole other type of skill set, you know, being able to survive in the water and know where to position yourself and all that is something else, you know. Like I was in this photo thing and I got to meet Todd Glaser, who's like, I think one of the best surf photographers, and we just nerded out talking about the intricacies of like what it's like to do his job versus my job, you know. And I was just like, dude, you're worried about getting eaten by a shark or getting like held underwater for 3 minutes with your camera. I'm bummed out that I'm like crouched down next to some bum piss, you know, in an alleyway by a dumpster. They don't even compare, you know. You win. Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I guess this kind of brings me to the last two questions here, and it's what was your reasons for shooting primarily black and white?
I think it comes from just like me falling in love with black and white fine art photography. Yeah. Like, you know, when I was super young, just getting into it, like I said, like Thomas Campbell, he was like all color, so colorful, colored flashes, so much, and that really drew me in. But once I found that black and white photo book in the library, it was just like, that's all I want to do. Like, how can I bring that to skateboarding, you know? And that's what totally changed my career. Like my career was kind of, I had a good little run when I first started and then dropped out of it. Moved to Kentucky, didn't shoot skateboarding for a while, and got really into fine art photography. That's when I started doing dry plate negatives and started learning that whole process. And it was in that time that I like thought I could maybe merge that with skateboarding. And then I moved back to California with that in mind, doing that, trying to do that, and that was when my career actually blossomed. Like it like reborn, you know? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It was cool.
Did you ever find that there were photos that didn't work in black and white?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was always grumpy about that. Like I always wanted everything to work in black and white. I almost always, even when I shot digitally, had the preview in black and white. Just because I wanted to see if I could get away with it in black and white, like if first. And then some images, it just didn't translate, and then it was like, okay, well, this will be color. But yeah, I'd say 75% of my work for the last 10 or 15 years was black and white.
Did you ever have a skater bring two shirts, bring a white one and bring a black one?
Oh man, no, but in the slap days, in the early days, Lance Dawes would always remind all of us photographers that worked for him, like, your photos are going to get run more if they're colorful. And he would give us like a pile of slap shirts, all brightly colored, like yellow, red, you know, and he'd be like, get dudes to wear this, like you're going to be more likely that I'm going to run the photo. So we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean,
was,
yeah.
sorry.
No, I was just going to say, he just had such a good eye. He was such an artist. Like he has such a creative eye, like for design. And that's why Slap was such an amazing magazine, because of that and him. Yeah, it's all about contrast. Like sometimes, the dude's just going to vanish into the background, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very real. There were probably a handful of times, like later in my career, where I would ask a dude if he had another shirt with him, for sure. But yeah, hadn't thought about that in a while.
We already kind of touched on this, but what's next for your photography? You have no projects in the works, nothing?
Nope, no. I'm kind of just in a holding pattern, waiting, like hoping that it sparks again, because I really miss it and want it to be there in my life. And now I have the space and the time for it again, where like I could get back into it. I'm just kind of waiting to see. I got so burnt out toward the end. It was like really like kind of traumatizing. I just didn't want to touch camera. I didn't want to think about photography anymore. It was refreshing to like not always be looking for a picture, and I kind of sunk into that. And so yeah, I'm just hoping that it sparks again, because I do miss it, and I still do identify as a photographer. Like I still think that's who I am. Toward the end of photography, I got really interested in permaculture, like landscape design. I don't know if you know what that is, but I got really interested in that. And on a couple of my last trips, I did like online courses to get certified in permaculture design. And when I lost my job with Element, I started working with a local friend who has a permaculture business. So I did that with him for about 5 years and really enjoyed that. And then he had like some downturn time where there wasn't a lot of work, so I started working with another friend as a builder. And I've been working with him for a few years now, and I'm really enjoying that too. What I found is like, and this is probably why I was so unhappy toward the end in skateboarding photography, is I need to be physical. I need to move my body a lot. I need to be outdoors, like working hard. It's like really good for my mental health. So sitting in front of a computer all day working on images was kind of killing me. I was having eye problems. I was depressed. It was not good. So finding that out about myself has been a game changer. So that's what I do now, and I love it. I just like love getting out every day and learning something new, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes a change of pace is a nice thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and who knows where it'll lead next, you know?
Yeah.